Solana is starting to dominate the RWA scene, and there's many reasons why. Today we're going to have a special guest that will kind of break this down for you, so don't miss it. I want to, of course, thank our sponsor today, and that is Tangem. And this, of course, is where you can get into self-custody, and you guys have seen this wallet out there for quite some time. We've had it on the channel almost forever, but it is the perfect way to get into self-custody. All you have to do is jump over to tangem.com. You guys can get started over there. They've got a little bit of a discount, always brewing, and ours stacks on top of that. So use our code down below. You guys can get started and get into self-custody if you're not already doing it. Very easy to use and very secure in terms of, and at times like this, that's an important one. All right, so I want to bring on Tuomas coming in from Collector Crypt to kind of break down some of these issues around RWAs. Tuomas, how are you?
Doing just fine today. It's a beautiful day here in California.
Maybe some of our people don't know who Collector Crypt is. Let me just kind of start there so we can get going in and why this is so important to RWAs. Give us kind of a quick rundown on it.
Sure. Collector Crypt is a novel project built on blockchain, specifically on Solana. And what we do is we tokenize real world assets. And the idea is that by putting real world assets on chain, you immediately solve a lot of friction and pain points that exist trading other real world assets. So in the real world, I guess. And the idea is that if you can trade, beyond geographical borders, you can settle your transactions instantly, and you can do it in a trustless, permissionless way. You could significantly improve on the friction that collectors like myself have when we deal with eBay and some other marketplaces like that.
Right. And I think this is one of the things that when you look at real world assets and crypto and blockchain, it seems like this was almost meant for this. If you just look at tokenized commodities right now, you can kind of see we are talking about an explosion that is currently underway, centered some around gold, but I anticipate we'll probably see something like Pokemon cards on this very soon, being able to understand where that market is heading. And within that, tokenized gold versus like Pokemon, and do you think Pokemon, once available to something that's tracking this, would grow faster than what we've seen here with early stage RWAs like gold?
Yeah, I think, gold, you've been able to trade gold through your brokerage house and in many different formats for decades. It's a commodity. It's been traded a lot. You can buy and sell futures. You can buy and sell gold ETFs. You could get exposure to gold through mining companies. The same is not true at all for trading card collectibles. So if you take a look at Pokemon specifically over the last 25, 30 years, it has outperformed at nearly every single other asset class that exists on the face of this earth. The hardest part about it, it's very difficult to get institutional exposure to Pokemon cards. So bringing them on chain, being able to put them in a vault, have the custody and trust available, very, very similar to like how you have with stocks with your depository trust company. You have the Pokemon cards in your vault. And now you can, create new financial instruments around it. So we're very excited, and we definitely think this unlock is going to make, trading cards more accessible to not typical trading card investors.
Yeah. With everything that's happening in DC around Clarity, would that have any Clarity Act? Would that have any implication on your business?
It has a lot of implication on our cards token. So our Collector Crypt does have a token that you can trade on Solana, but Pokemon, even Gensler said that Pokemon cards are not securities. So Clarity won't have an impact on being able to trade Pokemon cards. It certainly will have an impact on our platform, though.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. Other things that make me believe that we are in maybe a next generation era for collectors is what's happening in Japan. You look at Japan right here, moving to regulate Pokemon trading cards. This is going to be huge, and of course, granted, Japan has been making so many moves here when it comes to crypto. This seems like a natural evolution for that. What do you expect out of this? Do you think it's going to really open up the market opportunity?
I think a lot of what's happening, because Pokemon cards, they're literally worth more than their weight in gold. They become a financial instrument, and they're used in kind of unsavory settings in many cases, and they're also being targeted by a criminal enterprise. So I think it's a very good move by Japan to come in and start to pass regulation to protect consumers and to protect the beneficial trade in the Pokemon ecosystem. And as with everything related to Pokemon cards, Japan was one of the first to pass regulation about how these kind of Pokemon boxes and products should be constructed, and all of this to basically protect consumers, and we're totally behind that.
Yeah. Well, they're even going to the level of now getting facial recognition to block resellers and scalping, which kind of surprised me. I mean, this means that it's super serious, and of course, you've got massive demand, in this market as well. When you look at what you guys are doing with the cards token and the potential of something like an IPO, I'm just in general, when you kind of look at this project versus things like token and equity, which is kind of in limbo right now, how would that play out for you guys in terms of how you're structured today?
Yeah, so we're kind of in a very, I'd say we're in limbo, right? We've been waiting for regulation to pass surrounding, how the SEC is going to treat tokens. I'll say, just complete disclosure, not financial advice. I'm playing a little kid's toy sandbox outside. I would love to be able to, legally attribute value to the token in a way that we are so used to and accustomed with, publicly traded securities. Yeah. But I can't do that yet. So what I can do on my side is I can, treat it like it is equity in everything that we do in all of our business dealings, but I can't legally go out and say, hey, this is equity, right? So it's currently in my sandbox with my kids' plastic toys outside.
Do you think cards is, the token is kind of the ultimate Japanese exposure, I guess, if you think about it in terms of how that market is responding to this?
I think the cards token, let's assume if we were treating it like equity, I think it's a very efficient and it's a very pure way to gain exposure to the trading card market, because not only does the treasury of Collector Crypt own all of the cards on the Collector Crypt platform, all of the revenues from our protocols also get attributed to our token foundation and treasury. So if this is a space that you are bullish on for the next 10, 20 years, we're trying to make cards token the pure representation of that market beta.
So there's a lot happening in this space right now that is around getting cards graded. My son and I, we kind of collect Pokemons. We're looking at trying to get graded. That's a big problem. In many cases, it kind of just defaults you back into the market to try to find or buy a graded card. And I look at, if you look at the PSA vault and how it works, this, of course, the big partnership with eBay. First of all, how can you guys compete with this? Because you kind of have a similar service, but it's a little different.
The different, complexity between all of these companies on the top level, these mega corporations that interact in trading cards, it's incredibly complex. And, I'd love to maybe write an article or something about it one day. But so through eBay, you could buy a raw card and have it graded at PSA. That's one thing. PSA actually acquired eBay's vaulting facility. So PSA Vault today was eBay Vault several years ago. PSA interacts directly with GameStop for their GameStop Power Packs. If you remember, GameStop just tried to do a hostile takeover of eBay, right? So you have a bunch of really big, giants out there floating, and, they're kind of like supporting each other and shaking hands, while at the same time they're trying to stab each other in the back. And so it's a very interesting thing from my perspective to kind of see happen. And what we are doing is we're trying to build a novel kind of infrastructure, a novel ecosystem to say, hey guys, take a look at this. Maybe this is a way to solve a lot of these kind of issues that you guys are fighting over here. And, we could get to a place where we're all able to transact and interact on the same level, which I think it would be a brilliant future, because that's going to put the people who are buying and selling trading cards as the most important piece.
Yeah, and that's going to be, I think, for anything to grow like this, I think you've got to have that community. We've seen it in the in the crypto space in a big way. It's how tokens take off. It's how some of the blue chips have become the blue chips, including Solana. When you look at CC cards overall, will they ever be on eBay, do you think?
A lot of them are on eBay. So our users, sometimes they find a great deal on our platform and they want to try to sell that on eBay or consign it on eBay. So a lot of our cards do make it onto eBay. And that's something that we're also working towards as well. One of our competitors allows you to list cards directly on eBay. I think that's really interesting. I'm not too interested in the 13% fee that eBay charges or the fraud that comes with it. So I think, there's probably, some work that needs to be done on that direct mechanism. And yeah, we're chatting with eBay about all of that. I think there is a big opportunity because when we talk about blockchain, we talk about permissionless, we talk about instant settlement, we talk about cross-border transactions, we talk about, no middlemen and no fees, and you control your own wallet and you control your own destiny. Yeah. I think all of those kind of founding principles and advantages of blockchain will apply to collectibles. I think trading cards are literally the ripe orange at the bottom of the tree.
Right.
The tree is full of oranges. And, it's not just the tree, there's a whole orchard full of a ton of different things that can be tokenized. And, I really believe that we are kind of the spear point of bringing commerce and bringing trade onto blockchain. And we don't view ourselves, today, this is what we are. But 5 years from now, we are thinking about ourselves like the Amazon fulfillment engine of Web3. Any brand looking to drop a product, anybody looking to sell their collectibles or buy collectibles, trade, mint some hats, whatever it is,
right.
We want you to be able to do it through our platform, which will allow this kind of all these advantages of blockchain to permeate through non-crypto audiences.
Is there anything, Thom, right now that you guys can do with other assets other than a Pokemon card? Or do you have like luxury items? I'm thinking watches, you could even get into handbags, all sorts of things. It doesn't have the kind of community driver, but it has a very isolated, passionate user base, which is usually what drive these collectible areas anyway. Are you guys doing anything in those areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a partnership with comicbook.com. They've stood up a comic book vending machine just like ours. We had a good special for the World Cup on the day of the World Cup finals. Anybody who opened up our soccer vending machine, if they hit an epic on that soccer vending machine, we gave them an actual FIFA official ball. So these balls are stored in our vaulting facility in Montana. And 65 people got the ball on that day. And those balls are now tokenized on Solana and people can ship them out. So, we've done a lot of merch, we've done jerseys, we've done promotional cards for companies like, Vibes, which is, OCG. Mm-hmm. And, you could just imagine whatever else people would like to bring on chain. We have the vaulting facility and the logistics infrastructure to support.
I'm looking at a few things here with Solana, because you're mentioning again Solana, Ready cards, of course, going out now with Collectibles platform directly integrated into the PSA vault. So that means we continue to see more growth on Solana, which only gets into more collectibles, because we've already seen just a whole slew of offerings within this right now. And to your point that you just mentioned is we're going to see this across all sorts of things. So the opportunity is pretty big here. Do you think that's going to take a long time? I mean, Pokemon seems to be the tip of the spear on most of this, but yet at the same time, we're having all these problems around grading, the backlog, the issue of being able to get to a PSA level. How long do you think it takes before this market really takes off?
I think that's a really good question, and I think it's more determined by the users on Solana. Mm-hmm. Right now, crypto is in a pretty nasty bear market, and there isn't much reason for non-crypto users to come in and say, "Hey, I'm excited about what's happening here. Let's go and download the wallet and try some stuff out." Right. And also there's a lot of overlap between people who were, previously trading NFTs, because NFTs are digital collectibles, Pokemon card, you could call them cardboard collectibles, right? So there's a lot of overlap between those. There's a lot of, age demographic overlap as well. So I think it's going to take a lot. So trading cards and Pokemon and One Piece in particular were kind of like the immaculate fit. That fit incredibly well with the current demographic on Solana and crypto in general. When we move into other asset classes, this is going to require a little bit more effort to onboard users to Solana, or in contrast, to build the apps in such a way that people that are non-crypto don't even realize that they're using an on-chain platform.
Exactly.
And the latter is the approach that we're following. So we're going to be launching a pretty cool platform here in a couple months that does just that.
Speaking of that, of course, we've got PSA right now, as you can see, the backlog tracker. This, for you guys that don't know, when you try to get your card graded, normally it used to take not long at all, and it was fairly inexpensive. That, of course, has changed a lot with what we're seeing around tokenized opportunities here. And the backlog right now versus what you guys are doing with the CC business, why not just acquire a grading company? Something like, this one right here. This one's down in Miami, AGS. Why not go with a direction like that?
So the thing is, there are a lot of grading companies, and some of them are actually pretty good. But what people want is they want to be able to have, maximum liquidity, right? Mm-hmm. They want to be able to take something that, if you're going to buy and sell something for a fair price, you want to be able to buy that. You want to be able to go and maybe a week later sell it to somebody else and not have to hunt for somebody who's willing to buy kind of a non, top brand slab. Like even between the top three grading companies, which are PSA, BGS, and CGC, right. There are preferences between them. People might say, okay, I'm a big Pokemon collector. I only collect PSA 10 cards. And guess what? That individual is not in the market to buy your AGS slab, even if it was done in a good way. So I think there are significant competitive moats that PSA has. I think it's, grading cards, especially when you have a backlog of 12 million cards, that's incredibly difficult to overcome, especially with the amount of submissions they're getting and the heat behind the market. So I personally do not think the answer is, hey, let's go to a tier 2 or tier 3 grading company, and that's going to make the difference. Because if you get a card that's worth, $3,000 in a PSA 10, you're not going to submit it to AGS and get back a $2,000 card. You're going to wait 6 to 12 months to get it from PSA, because probably the value of the card is going to go up in that period of time anyway. So just consumer behavior compounds this issue, where I think there could be a significant benefit in kind of improving this is to build better tools, like you mentioned, AI grading in the pre-show discussion. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think if you were to, for example, let's say you have 500 cards you want to submit, if you're able to go and look at those 500 cards and say, oh, these 200 cards will definitely not get a PSA 10, right? You shouldn't submit those. Now you could submit the ones that are most likely to get the PSA 10 certification, which is, I think, a very elegant way to solve this issue.
Do you think there's just a lot in the pipe right now that is kind of card grading requests that should not be done, and that's what's clogging this system up?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that answers that question. What about the successful level of what Jupiter did with the gacha cards? Obviously, we've showcased this before. Jupiter also in the Solana ecosystem. What did you think about that?
I loved it when they launched this product using our engine. It was a really good demonstration that platforms that have massive distribution like Jupiter can really go out and create new markets and new opportunities. I think a lot of people who were looking at our platform when we did that, they were basically saying, well, oh man, are you just going to send Collector Crypt users over to Jupiter? And we, in fact, saw the opposite. We saw about 90% of people that were opening up packs on the Jupiter platform were new to the ecosystem, which was just really amazing to me that there was so much depth there in the Jupiter user base. It's just a real testament to how strong that brand is.
Yeah. So were you a little surprised then overall?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was thinking about half of Jupiter's users were going to be existing Collector Crypt users, and I was totally shocked that they brought so many new users to the ecosystem, which is leading us to double down on the narrative of being able to open up our APIs and our infrastructure to partners. Yeah,
definitely opens up. Well, I mean, you think about it, sometimes you can get too centered in one area, where collectors could be, versus the fact that there are collectors in all different, sectors out there in terms of the opportunity for distribution. Speaking of distribution, you got to look at Disney, what they did, of course, launching Disney Lorcana trading game. Why not Lorcana yet?
We're buying Lorcana as we speak. It's
Okay.
it's emerging. People are kind of worried about like what happens to Pokemon after the 30th anniversary goes through.
Yeah.
And to be frank, it's not like people are going to say, okay, I'm going to sell my Pokemon, and okay, now it's time to buy S&P 500 index fund. Right? These are people who've built their lives. People who are trading these things and collecting them. They've built their lives, their friend networks, their relationships, a lot of their software and tools around, buying and selling trading cards. So when they're moving out of Pokemon, chances are they're moving into something else. And we saw that last year with Pokemon and One Piece, right? So if you take a look at the prices of Pokemon cards in September last year, it surged around the time when Collector Crypt launched our cards token. There was a lot of buying and a lot of excitement, but then, the Pokemon market started to slide. And right as it was sliding, you saw One Piece start to pick up. Yeah. So it's not like there is correlation between these different assets, but there is a lot of opportunities to kind of switch from one asset to another. And guess what? Blockchain just makes that super easy.
Yeah, I think backing that up would be what happened with Palworld. We've shown Palworld on our show for multiple years ago, back when the last time it popped. If you go back, that was 2024 when it kind of exploded onto the scene. If you guys go back and just search Palworld, and you'll see some videos that we've done on it. It kind of died, and now the market seems to be resurgence again, and even more so than what it was back in 2024. So I think it's exactly what you're talking about there. There's some different opportunities here that's starting to open up. In terms of thoughts on RWA based games, looking at Palworld and others that will be coming, what are your thoughts going forward from here?
So when you say RWA based games, do you mean specifically like games that will incorporate RWAs that are redeemable for their physical counterparts? I personally think there's just a massive opportunity in that space. I think if you take a look back to 2003 or 4, you take a look at Magic Arena, and Magic. It was actually called Magic the Gathering Online, MTGO. And they had this system where you can go and buy packs online. And if you were to collect a whole set of those packs, you could redeem that whole set. And this was way back before blockchain even existed. And so I've always been a huge fan of this, because you could allow people to go in and in a much more efficient way build their decks, optimize their collection, meet friends, and do this kind of stuff online, and then you can ship out and redeem the physical cards. So I just view this as a beautiful way to continue increasing presence of TCG, both in the digital and physical sense.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about wallets in general. We're starting to see wallets being developed around certain brands. Is this something that you guys are considering in the future?
I don't think we are going to create our own wallet. What we are focused on doing is integrating our product with wallets of other platforms.
Okay.
Wallets are very hard. I mean, we've seen a lot of wallet hacks. We've seen a lot of difficulty in switching costs between wallets. It's very difficult for one wallet to say, hey, I'm different than another wallet for the following reasons. And so, it's a hard space to be, and there's established market leaders, and we just want to work with the best. So
even other platforms out there, you could even go into Robinhood, which is going to still allow what we think will be allowing you to add eventually Pokemon cards into, wallets like that. So I think to your point is you're going to see some majors out there kind of going in this direction. Let's talk about Beezie a little bit. We've had them on the show before. Their pivot to Solana, does this prove that the Solana thesis is kind of set up for anything that is geared toward, especially the collector community?
Yeah, I mean, we're good friends with the Beezie team. We like their product. We like their take on how they've designed their machine. And frankly, I think Solana is the place to be. Solana is the best and leading retail chain out there right now. It doesn't mean that Robinhood and some of these places won't give them a run for their money. But I think, we see a lot of platforms, not just Beezie, moving over to Solana. And I think I think that's great for the ecosystem. And one thing that I would always like to say is from a UX perspective, we always tell our friends and competitors that we need to figure out standards for how these NFTs are on chain, right? Because if somebody who's not crypto comes into Solana and they say, "Hey, I want to try 5 different platforms," then you're going to wind up with 5 different wallet IDs. You're going to wind up with 5 different places you have to ship cards from. And that's not really the best UX. So I think one place that these platforms can do better is coordinating on standards and coordinating on cooperation so that a non-crypto user coming in has the best user experience that we could deliver.
And we've got this mega burn now happening with Solana. All of this is happening right now with these SIMDs, which are some project changes that are going to change in general in terms of this opportunity with Solana. How big of a deal is this for the collector community? Do you think this matters at all?
I think the better that Solana does, the better the collector community on chain does. And the Solana Foundation and people on the Solana team that we've met, people that are a part of the ecosystem, a bunch of bald guys there that know each other at this point. Solana, doing well means that collectibles are going to do well. It means that we're going to do well. It means our users are going to do well. And I'm frankly, I've been in crypto since 2013. I've seen so many, alternative layer 1 chains launch and so many other things. And I think that just distracts people, right?
Yeah.
We need to, as a community, say, okay, this is Solana. This is what Solana does really well. And let's stop standing up. Here's the Solana killer, right? At this point, that doesn't make sense because you're just you're killing retail adoption, right? So Solana wins. Let's just move forward there and build and solidify that ecosystem.
I like that one. Solana wins. Let's just move forward from there, Tuomas. Last question to you on Palworld in general. Any plans for what Palworld is doing to be able to come into what you guys are doing?
That's a great question. We haven't chatted with the team on that point, but we've made this pitch to other card game platforms in the past, and I think for example, being able to play in Palworld with tokenized and graded Palworld cards would be really cool. And now that we've seen such a great launch of the Palworld TCG, I think it just makes natural sense. So thanks for reminding me. I'm going to get Joe on it right away.
There you go, Palworld. Hopefully you're watching this and there's a connection there. Hey, Tuomas, thanks for coming in today. We're going to watch this very closely because we're very connected to the RWA space, specifically around the collector community, because we've watched this kind of grow after really the last NFT craze in crypto. And this may be the one that sticks. So it's very interesting. So thanks for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Paul. Really appreciate your time, man.
If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, drop a comment down below, and also join our free private member group. The link is in the description.